Hi there everybody. So if you want to learn the 7 secrets to wealth and freedom, this is the video for you. My name is Christine Furtado. I'm a mindset and money mastery coach as well as a professional accountant by trade, and I'm the queen of money. Money is definitely my thing. So today I want to talk to you about, like I said, how to get that wealth and freedom that you're looking for. And I'm specifically doing this for our mums group online, so Mums Online Mastermind, Jessica's community. And so thank you very much, Jessica and community of mums, for allowing me the space to do this. And it's an amazing community. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please check the description below for a link of connecting with me, but also a link to our Mums Mastermind, which is an amazing community of like-minded mums, and it's a great place to be able to connect and feel safe in the space of the internet. So today I want to talk about, like I said, that how to get that secret to wealth and freedom. And it's a secret, but it's very interesting how probably a lot of people know about it, but not really a lot of people want to do this. So I have a few things just to talk about before we get into those 7 steps that are really going to set you, that are very key to setting you on that same path. So the first thing is, obviously you need to decide 100% commit to doing this. If you are going to do it, it is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is a long-term sustainable plan to be able to do this. But if you stick to it, it doesn't matter how much you make, you can actually put yourself in a great position of wealth and freedom. The other thing is, it is going to take some discipline, and I call it, flexing that new muscle, or getting that new muscle to be able to do this. It is not one mantra that I live by. It is not what you make, it's what you saved. I use this exact same principle myself, to go, first of all, to go from making $5 an hour to 6 figures, but also paying off our house in a 25-year mortgage into a 12-year without putting extra money down. So if you follow these simple rules, you can get to that point as well. It really does not matter how much you make. And it really will get you to that financial freedom. Where most people go wrong is today, but I'm doing this in 2017, this video, but today we're so conditioned to live on credit that most people, don't really know how to live on cash, and how to do this. And it's a very simple process, but most people will have a hard time with it because of how we're conditioned. So I wanted to put that disclaimer out. The other thing is, these steps I've been doing since I was 16, so it's been a long time. That's many years ago. And the funny thing is, I came across David Ramsey, which I've heard of the name, but I never really looked at his work. And the funny piece is, he has a very similar formula as well. So I want to put a disclaimer out there. I didn't really know his stuff. I didn't know his stuff before, and we're doing the same thing. So I've been studying great people and great leaders and successful people for years, and that's how I got to doing this. So it's very interesting how we have basically the same thing. So whether you follow him or me, it's going to be, you're going to get to the same outcome. So the first step is creating that $1,000 emergency fund, and I call this the starting point of discipline and flexing that muscle of saving. And so that's really the purpose of this, and it's also good to have that extra $1,000 in the bank in case something happens and something occurs and you need like that $500 very quickly. It's there. And the other thing I want to do, these 7 steps, this is a long term. So depending on how far you are in debt, this could be, a 2 to 5 year plan. But the quicker that you can get it under control, the quicker you're going to get there. So the first step is actually the hardest step, but the easiest step. So hardest because it's getting people started and reconditioned and disciplined to create that muscle of saving, but the easiest because it's only $1,000. So and I mean, I say that lightly, but I mean, $1,000 could be a lot for some people as well, but that's why some people have the hard time with it, is because it is definitely, you know, it's changing that discipline and that mindset that we have. So the second step is paying off all your debt. So the first thing I like to do is put your debt in order of smaller to large, making sure you know when it ends, as well as the interest rate that goes with it. And the reason for that, I like to, if you have one or two smaller loans that are maybe $1,000, $2,000, they're the great ones to start with. And the reason they're great to start with is it gives you some small wins, and it feels like you're making some progression. And again, it's building that muscle, so it feels like you're utilizing it and getting a quicker result. Then you start knocking off definitely the ones that are the highest interest rate, and especially if, and I have a separate blog on this, but especially if you have student loans or medical loans or medical expense, you'll want to pay those off because they typically have the highest interest rate. But especially the student loan, because if you do get in a situation where you're in a bankruptcy claim, that will not be allowed to be dissolved. So that's why you want to make sure that gets paid off first. So then you would just use, there's different methods. I call it the compounding effect of paying off your debt. Some people call it the stacking method. I believe Dave Ramsey refers to it as snowball. Same idea. Basically, what it is once you put so much towards paying off one debt, you take that same amount and you keep applying it to the next debt. And then once you pay that off, you apply it to the next debt, and so forth. So you just keep going. And basically what ends up happening is when you have that final debt, you know, you're putting all the money that you're just keeping putting that money in until you've paid all that off. And again, depending on the amount of debt you do have, this could be, you know, a 1, 2, 3 year time frame to be able to pay that off. The third step is to have that 3 to 6 months of emergency savings. And before I even knew about people talking about emergency fund, my husband and I, my husband used to work construction, and it was seasonal, so he always got laid off at some point. So we always had to have 1 to 2 months of savings in the bank. So that's something we've always done, because, you know, if he does get laid off, there's a waiting period to get money in. And then, you know, when he's laid off, it was only a percentage of his pay. So, you know, we want to make sure we could pay the bills, as well as, you know, a roof over our head, obviously, and some food on the table. So that's why, you know, so some people say 3 months. I definitely recommend 6 months. And the reason for this emergency fund is shit happens, life happens. There will always be some kind of emergency fund or emergency requirement, whether it is a furnace or, you know, your heating goes, you need a new car, all of a sudden your car breaks down, there's some emergency health issues, and so forth. And what you'll find is the more that you have this savings and emergency fund set aside, the more your life is actually going to go to normal, where this stuff won't happen as much. Kind of like that Murphy's Law, you know, when there's an opportunity for something to go wrong, it will. So if you don't have that emergency fund, chances are it will happen. If you have it, there's that likelihood that it won't. So it's just a great thing to get into. And then the other thing, the emergency fund must be kept just for that. An emergency is something that literally comes up that you don't have that money on it. Very unexpected. Taking a trip that you feel like taking is not an emergency fund requirement. So basically, unless it is an absolute emergency, you do not touch those funds. So very important. Then the next step number 4, is to invest 15% of your household income towards some kind of investments. I recommend a high investment. In Canada, you can do some mutual funds, and there's all kinds of different investments that you can do. And that way you're not only investing, but you're also reaping the benefits of making some residual income on that in some interest as well. David Ramsey does suggest for the States Roth IRAs and pre-tax retirement funds. So that's definitely if you're in the States. Again, it all depends on where you are in the world, but definitely look towards speaking with a financial advisor that can help you with getting something that is very high interest rate, like a 12 to 15%. And like I said, so you're investing 15% of your household income in towards investments. And again, you want to make sure before, that's the other thing, before you go from one step to the next, you have to make sure that prior step is complete. And the great thing about step 4 is you don't have any debt anymore. You've got some cushion in the bank. So basically you're using that compounding effect now on your investment, the same compounding effect that you used on your you're paying off your loans. You're going to now use it towards putting money towards that. And so you're going to find that you're just plowing through and really having a real shitload of investments. So then step 5, once you've got that investment on track, you'll want to start a college fund for your kids. And in Canada, I know we have RESP, which is really, really good. Again, you would have to check to what it can be used for, because it's not utilized for every single college or university program. It depends, but definitely a very, very good vehicle for saving for your kids. And so definitely do that. It is best to fund your college and university as much as possible for your kids. And the reason for that, I've been listening to lately, I've just recently come across David Ramsey, but I can't believe that people are spending $300,000-$400,000 on education, that a lot of them aren't going to be lawyers and engineers, as these are like private schools. So if you can't fund it, then they don't go to those big schools, right? Because then what happens is, as they come out of university or college, then, they've got this massive debt to be able to pay for. And as soon as you're done, like the massive interest rates start, and before you know it, you have an even bigger debt. So very, very important to fund your college or university for your kids. So that's with step 5. Step 6 is paying off your home early. Again, I have a blog on how to do this just for this particular item. So I will put it in the description if you are watching this on YouTube. But the thing with paying off early is, as much as you can, put some money down on your home. Now that you've got some investments, your loans are paid off, now you should be able to take some big chunks and put it on your home as well. The other thing is, if possible, if you have let's say you have a really high interest rate on your mortgage and interest rates happen to be lower, I would keep my mortgage the same. And the reason for that is, again, you're paying it off without even realizing. You're already used to those payments, so why not? But there's definitely different ways that you can do this as well if the opposite is true. And the more that you can pay off your house early, the method that I just mentioned is exactly how I did it. We paid off a 25-year mortgage in a 12-year time frame, and we didn't put any extra money down. We didn't have extra payments. Now, one thing you can do to pay your house off is to, when it comes upon renewal, is to do it as a bi-weekly or a weekly payment, because what happens is you're paying it off a lot quicker by paying more payments on it. So that's definitely another way of doing it. But the idea is, if you can pay that off in a very short time, what's going to happen? You're debt free, you've got investments, you've got an emergency fund, your kids are ready for college, and now basically it's all savings. Can you imagine that? So this is where you're well on your way to your wealth and your freedom as well. So the 7th step, that was step 6. The 7th step is to build wealth, continue to build your wealth, and also to give. So gratitude and giving to others. And believe it or not, many of the wealthiest people are the most outrageously generous people in the world as well, believe it or not. And basically, that simple rule, even in the Bible, it states, basically what you give, you get back in return. Not that you want to do that. I would definitely not give to get back, give from the heart, but it's just it's reciprocated, right? It does come back to you. It's kind of like that boomerang effect. It comes back to you the more generous that you are. And generous is great. the other piece is, you know, the Bible does talk about tithing, 10% of your income. So that's another way, and that is sorry, I just had a message there. Tithing, you know, the 10%, like I said, is definitely in the Bible, and it's definitely something that we want to adhere to as well. And, you know, so tithing and money is one way of being generous, but also giving your time and volunteering is another. And it's, you know, it can be for you know, something of your choice, a community of your choice, a charity of your choice, whatever it is from your heart. I also like to spontaneously give as well. You know, for example, there was a gentleman that couldn't afford a piece of like a whole chicken for his family. He was on some food stamps, and there was some kind of restriction. You know, I ended up buying, I happened to be right behind him. I bought it for them, and for him. He had actually gone back to return something else or go get something else, and I told the lady I'm still buying it. So I just did that. It was just an immediate reaction to do that. And the lady behind me is like, "Do you know this gentleman?" I said, "No." She goes, "That is the most wonderful thing that I've ever seen anybody else do." So I like to do spontaneous thing, or, you know, I'll buy coffee for the next 5 cars behind me, or pay for people's gas, or, you know, or if I see someone in need, that's how I like to give as well. So, I mean, it's whatever is generous and giving for you. And I also want to talk about, you know, just very quickly, that, you know, you can become a millionaire by simply putting $100 a month into a mutual fund for a 40-year period. That compounding effect, you become a millionaire just from that, not even adhering to these steps. So you can easily do that. And the reason I share that, you know, we all think of millionaires like people who are making $1 million a year, which can be, but to be a millionaire is actually your net worth. So basically it's what you own versus what you owe. And so if you follow these steps, in the end you're not going to owe anything, you're going to own everything. So you can easily become you know, a millionaire. So I wanted to share that with you as well. So just let's recap the 7 steps. So the first step is creating that $1,000 emergency fund. The second step is paying off all that debt. Start with the small ones, then go to the ones with the highest interest rates, and especially if you have student loans and medical expenses, you definitely want to start with those 2 first, and then go but you do want to also make sure that you are paying at least the minimum on everything. And if you do have a lot, you may also want to see if you can amalgamate a lot of this at the bank and consolidate some of it as well. Step 3 is generating the 3 to 6 months of expenses. So in an emergency fund, I highly recommend 6 months. Move towards that, because that really puts you in a great spot. You lose your job, there's not this big worry and panic in the world. Step number 4 is investing 15% of your household income into a high interest rate, whether it's a mutual fund or whatever kind of investment. And number 5 is generating that college fund for your kids. And like I said, in Canada we have RESP, and I'm sure there's some others depending on the country that you're looking at as well. Step 6 is paying off your house early as possible. If you can get to the weekly and bi-weekly. For bi-weekly, then, like, if you can really get to weekly, that's amazing, because now you're talking like 52 times a year. The more that payments that you're making, it's going to cut your years back quite a bit. And so basically by doing that, you're not paying out as much interest in the end. And number 6 is to pay, sorry, I mentioned that. Number 6 is to pay off your house early. But number 7 is continuing to build that wealth and continue to give and offer gratitude, which ultimately is the biggest fulfillment. But also in the end, what you become is financially free, and you know, that freedom. Can you imagine, you know, being debt free, having some savings, having your house paid for, and just being able to do absolutely what you love? So imagine how cool that would be. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If there's anyone that you feel would benefit from this, please share it with them, and like and comment below this video as well, because I would love to be able to come back and help you. And if this interests you and you're very interested